This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, this is just a taster of two of our chats today.
I started off with one parrot. Unfortunately, that was the nearest thing to drugs that I could get to, because from there, I became totally addicted to parrots.
Can I ask what your pen name was with Milton?
It was Jenny Cartwright.
Oh, that rings a bell.
So it'll be birdsong and love songs later, but we're going to start with travel. Spring has sprung, Easter's on the horizon, and with it we hope comes the unfurling of such a claustrophobic way of living. And maybe holidays? We just don't know yet. Announcements about summer travel are still a week away. But our first chat is from the other side of the luggage carousel of dreams. It's between two people whose livelihoods depend on us being able to travel. Jason runs Deepdale Camping on the North Norfolk coast. He's 49, married to Emma with one daughter, and they have a lazy chocolate Labrador. How rude. After a degree in computing and business studies, Jason went travelling, worked on double-decker bus tours around Europe and Asia, and also for the UN, and then came back and started the Deepdale business with his dad. Daniel and his dad set up a travel company together in Peterborough, originally for holidays to Italy, but now Typically Travel offers to take you to all kinds of European destinations. He's married to Valentina and has 3 kids from his previous marriage. Nice detail, he used to think he was a bit of a dancer, but his family have told him otherwise. Daniel starts.
Will I survive? Hopefully, but I don't know. I know it sounds scary. I mean, we're fully bonded and protected and everything else, but there's going to come to a point that I'm going to run out of money. You know, we're getting no cash flow for the last year, and we've probably refunded £700,000 of refunds we've paid out.
Yeah.
It's all right at the beginning when you got a bit of money, but when it's getting a bit close to the barrel.
The thing is, I remember people saying it's going to be 4 weeks, it's going to be 8 weeks, it's going to be 3 months, and of course, you know, I don't think any of us thought it was going to be this long, and it's far from over yet. And the thing is, it's not just that the tap was switched off and everything stopped for a year. Of course, you've got all of the costs of admin and everything else, and don't get me wrong, furlough and the grant scheme for us have been absolutely lifesavers. How are you being affected by the lack of vaccines going into places like Italy?
I mean, Italy, since December, the end of December, they were open. The only thing you couldn't go to was a football match or concerts. Now they've had this variant, the UK variant, hit them, and what they're doing, they're going to shut down very quickly till Easter. But they had on top of it, people were going out, all the shops open, you could go and have your hair done, your nails, no problem. And they're talking about ready to reopen, ready for the summer. And I can see the UK starting to outprice itself already for value for money. You know, I was speaking to a travel agent yesterday near Truro down south, and they were saying for over Easter, a 3-night, 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom cottages, nothing special, was going for about £800-900.
Yeah.
Now that's a lot of money. I know it's beautiful down there, but at the same time, Easter, 3 nights in Venice or Florence, with a flight and accommodation for 2 people, £700. Yeah, there's a big difference. But it has made me realise, you know, I used to work, Jason, all hours, 7 days a week, not doing that anymore. There's better things in life. You know.
Possibly it's made us realise the the value of quality time, hasn't it?
I had the stress, probably like you have. You know, you watch your company being dismantled bit by bit, ripped apart, and you can't do nothing about it. I'd have rather done a business decision, gone wrong, and business decision's gone wrong, my fault. You know, I wanted to do holidays to the Falkland Islands, nobody went, and I went bankrupt. But this is not my fault. You know, before March we were flying, and I've worked my socks off. I'm not doing that anymore. I want to go for an easy life now. Still work, you know, because it's in your blood, isn't it? But, you know, it knocked me for 6. It really did, you know, and I've lost 2 stone. I started dieting, fitness, stress.
Yeah, I'm lucky because we've all of our accommodation and shops and stuff are based around Deepdale Farm and on the coast. at the worst moments of watching the tourism business and the shops businesses kind of go all over the place. It's been great to be able to stand in a field, and there's definitely moments in the last year where I would have happily put my backpack on and just walked into the sunset, but of course there was nowhere to go. You say
that.
I'm still here.
If I would have known, I might have done that, because I wasn't in debt. I could have closed down the business. I mean, if I tell you from March last year to March this year, and turnover, obviously it's not profit, I'm 3.6 million down in turnover.
Wow.
We were over 4 million last year. So, I've looked at my figures at the moment, my turnover is 400,000.
Wow.
So it's a huge,
a tenth of what you would normally do.
Yeah. And that's destroying. Do you know what I mean? I don't look at the figures anymore.
Yeah, I think we were about 85% down on the year before, and we should have been 20% up. It should have
same
been
as
a
us.
brilliant year.
I've got everything. With everything possible, wear thicker jumpers so we don't have the heating on. Everything. You think of everything. We've got cheap bloody coffee now. I used to have nice coffee at one point, but
I'm afraid we haven't skimped on the tea bags, and the team are quite good bakers. So that's quite good. We're doing our Comic Relief Bake Off challenge at the moment. So there's plenty of cake and stuff to eat at the moment, which is great.
Oh, fantastic! What can I say? It's nice to speak to people that are in the same kind of boat as you, but I'm chilled about it now. Really, what happens. Do you know what I mean, Jason?
We always had to come back to the fact that it's just a business at the end of the day, and
it is.
The decisions we were having to make were not life-threatening.
Kerry Devine is our producer at BBC Radio Cambridgeshire, and she recorded Daniel and Jason. To Sheffield we go now, to a world where you can write your own happy ending. We're going to lose ourselves in the world of romantic fiction with Leanne and Sally. Sally is 58, she's a podiatrist and writer, and Leanne is 36 and is a lecturer at Teesside University. She also has a PhD, and her research and teaching interests cover feminist and intellectual cultural histories and the relationship of literary writing to historical narrative. She's just finishing her first novel, a Gothic romance, and she has a 3-year-old daughter. Sally started writing for Mills and Boon in the early 1990s in pockets of time whilst raising 3 young children. She wrote 7 books with titles like Reluctant Surrender, yikes, and Forsaking All Reason. She says she loves her other career as a podiatrist because, as she points out, the feet she treats are attached to people, and every single day people tell her their stories. Sally starts.
I didn't read romance when I started writing it. I think I was too much of a blue stocking to allow myself. But it was also pre-internet. So in order to establish yourself as a writer, you had to have a publisher. And the only publishers who would accept unsolicited manuscripts were Mills and Boon. So it was so obvious that if you wanted to write, that was where you started. What got you into romance?
I always remember watching TV with my mum, and she brought us up by herself, and we were very close. She was quite young as well. And I just remember there was always like a period drama on TV with a woman in a swishy gown and meeting and like happy ending and all that, and babies and stuff. And my mum, she's never read books. She's not well educated. She never wanted to be. She works hard, but she loves stories, and she loves romantic, uplifting stories. So she taught me to love those kinds of stories. And I always loved to read. When I was 16, I was out shopping with my friend, and I thought, I want one of these Mills and Boon books, like a historical Mills and Boon with like Regency cover on and stuff. It was called The Viscount's Proposal or something like that. My friend laughed at me, but I thought, I'm right. Like, these are, and I just loved it, and I never stopped.
So how many have you written? Not had published, but how many have you written so far?
Oh, I don't know. About 10 with this latest one. I'm now into a third draft of that and determined to do something with it this year. So it's been a bit of a journey. How long was your journey to getting published?
I don't know, about a year and a half. And I sent off my first manuscript, which was a complete novel. And That was turned down, but I got a letter back encouraging me, so that, got quite a lot right. And they gave you a lot of guidance as to where you've gone wrong. And I took it all on board, what they had said, and then I made a second attempt. And then that one was turned down. But again, encouragement and guidance. And then the third one, they accepted.
Can I ask what your pen name was with Mills?
It was Jenny Cartwright.
Oh, that rings a bell.
I didn't publish that many. And of course, they all disappear. They're sold like magazines. But they gave you very good guidance. They said, you've got to fall in love with a hero yourself. Your heroine has got to be very sparky and independent, but inwardly vulnerable. And the hero had to be an alpha male, and you had to be in love with him. So are you in love with your heroes?
That's probably one of my issues is I don't create ones I quite fall in love with. I'm fascinated by them. But a critique actually said that once, that it feels like you're writing with your head, not your heart. So I'm always trying to figure out how to write more with my heart.
Yeah, I suppose it's all changed a lot now, because it was constantly changing when I was doing it, because the world changes and it always has to match the world you're in.
Yeah, I read a lot in the contemporary ones as well, in the modern ones, and there seems to be a lot of royalty, a lot of pregnancy, babies as usual.
See, that was when I was writing. There were no pregnant heroines in Mills and Boon. A lot of the readership was older, and they had been brought up sort of pre-war, and were you waited till the wedding night kind of thing. Mills and Boon had gone behind the bedroom door, and they were encouraging you to have sexual encounters quite early on in the stories, but they still wanted there to be somehow that purity, that no babies till after there was a wedding ring kind of thing. But then that changed while I was writing for them. And they said there are now so many single mothers reading this that would like there to be children. And so it was a huge change in the way they were viewing it.
What about titles? Did you get to keep the titles you picked?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, usually they would. Well, I was a bit cynical about it, because me and a friend were having a go at getting started at the beginning, and we just wrote a big list. We bought hundreds of Mills and Boons from jumble sales and charity shops and things, and we looked at the kind of words so they were things like reluctant surrender, storm of passion, temptation on trial. Temptation was a good word to have in there. Blameless desire, that was another one. Passionate opponent. I mean, they were a bit ridiculous, but they were what they were, so I was okay with that. Yeah, I love what you're saying about your mum loving stories, not being a reader, but loving stories. Because I really think that our brains are hardwired for stories. Not just telling them, but listening to them.
Like Harry and Meghan and people and royals generally. I think I'm not a royalist, but then I do think their wedding and their whole story is one of the best things that's ever happened.
Oh, yeah. It's a serial and we haven't got to the end of it yet, have we?
Do you think with being hardwired for stories, do we need to know that better things are coming, that there's going to be, if not an ending for now?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There's that quotation which keeps getting attributed to everybody in the world. It'll be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. I think that's because we need to know it'll be all right in the end. Otherwise, it's just hopelessness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sally and Leanne were recorded by our producer Rav Sangera at BBC Radio Sheffield. And that's all we are, really. Stories captured in chat. And if you'd like to be part of this epic tale, you can email us, listeningproject@bbc.co.uk. We welcome feedback on the programme too. And if you do want to take part, will you tell us a little bit about yourself so we can have a think about who to pair you up with? Fran emailed and told us that one of the things she wanted to talk about was how faith could help grief. Fran lives in Solihull. She has one son, and he and his fiancée had twin boys in March 2019. The family found out soon after they were born that one twin had a genetic disorder, and they knew early on that he didn't have long to live. Roman died in January 2020 Harley survives him. Fran works as a parish administrator for the Church of England. Sanjeev is married with 2 grown-up children. His parents had always lived with him. He and his dad caught COVID-19 last year and both ended up in critical care. And his father died while Sanjeev was very ill himself. Sanjeev is a Hindu, and here these two talk about how their different faiths have helped them.
Well, we had a funeral. We had a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful funeral. And then the pandemic started about a month later. And then we couldn't see each other and I couldn't be with my son. From a grandmother and a mother's point of view, not being able to fix it, not being able to do it, being completely helpless and feeling very sad myself and spending so much of my week looking after Roman and helping whatever way I could. I have found recently, I go really up and down, and then I've started to question, is there an answer? And what helps? What part is my faith playing in this? But I'm going to ask you because I am curious.
I'll be honest with you, Fran. My experience has surprised even me, and my reaction has surprised me in a positive way. And genuinely, I can say that the things that helped me were an absolute clarity. When the crunch happened, when I got the call, I was absolutely calm. I was in hospital bed in one place. My father, I was told by another doctor the other place, look, he's not going to make it. And in that moment, I let go, because my faith's teaching is, look, as humans, we have, in our lives, we strive to be the best, and we strive to do good and understand that God is always with us. And I remember saying to my mum, we've had some amazing memories all these years. We have no regrets as a family. We've made the most of every moment that we could. And now he's at peace. Our faith teaches us that if you live a pure life and you have conviction and faith in God, you are assured that.
I think there's a difference, perhaps, with somebody reaching, I don't use the phrase good age, but, the awkward thing, which I've realised, is when a younger generation in the family dies. That's difficult because people don't really know what to say. I'm not surrounded by, apart from when I'm at church with my church community, which has been really helpful to me, but we don't have the same strength of faith in my family, let's say. There's elements of it. Having the memories, well, yes, but we only had a few months of memories. And actually, it's very hard to look at that. What's helpful for me is knowing that, in a way, Roman is a reminder of that connection with God, which is pure love. And when I can hold on to that, it helps my brain to get around what I could be saying to myself in unhelpful self-talk about it. I've realised as well, not only my friends who know me well, but there's also my church community who've been alongside us. They've prayed for all of us. I'm holding my hands across my heart because I know that to some extent there's a whole community of people grieving alongside us. Now I can mostly be grateful for the love that so many people have felt through this tiny child, through meeting him, through having his eyes delve gently into theirs and very deeply. That gives me comfort as well.
And something you've said, I really struck a chord about when people are praying for you and the power of prayer. And it cuts across whatever labels we give our faiths. I consciously remember being in tears when I saw some messages coming in. And it was, you've experienced it, you clearly have, because you can feel it when you put your hands at your chest and you go, people are praying, and you can feel it. It's tangible. And that love, outpouring of love, that connection, to me, just reinforced that we are more than just this finite thing that we see.
Roman has probably made more impact on the world we're in than I ever would do. And how wonderful is that for a grandmother and the mother of the parent to be able to say.
And you have his brother to carry on loving and continuing that. And as I say, his memory will never go, and it will always be some amazing source of strength, I would say, in the future. And hope
we
and
talk
light.
about him. We talk about him. I'm sitting here in my flat, and in my mind, I can think, well, this is no different in a way to him being at home on the days that I wasn't with him.
Yeah.
Because actually, all but physically, I can still connect with him, and doing that through a spiritual connection, of course, which I'm also grateful for.
Absolutely. And that purity that you described when you look into his eyes, I think that is such a testament to that soul. When we have glimpses of divinity, when we have glimpses of purity, when we have the feeling like you had and I felt when people were praying for us, it kind of was, actually, what am I making such a fuss about? Stand back a bit. Because if you can connect with that and stay connected with it longer, it feels different.
Yeah, the walks in nature, the reconnecting with the creation around us, to take us out of the very, human side to all of this. But we still are human, so somehow we have to manage all of that.
Sanjeev and Fran, recorded by Jill Kersley at BBC Radio Manchester. Our final destination today is very different. All our chats are, and it contains that phrase, "From there I became totally addicted to parrots." Let's just spend 5 minutes in the company of Lawrence and Steve. Lawrence is Chief Operating Officer at the Isle of Wight Zoo. It's more about conservation than display these days, and the zoo will be renamed the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary from April this year. Steve is the founder of the Lincolnshire Wildlife Park, which is now home to more than 1,500 animals, most of them brought to the park by members of the public, and that even includes a tiger. Steve started the National Parrot Sanctuary back in 1993, and one thing led to another. Lawrence starts.
I suppose, thinking back, my passion came from I saw a rhino in a zoo, and it was, it's seeing that animal, and this is key, people argue against zoos, but when you see it in the flesh and you can smell it and hear it chomping on the hay, and it's 5 foot from a 5-year-old child, it's like a dinosaur. I remember thinking it was a dinosaur, and that is burnt into my brain to this day. And I can trace back my love of animals to that point in a zoo.
I've always been a very animal-orientated person. Not necessarily wanted to be a zookeeper, but always wanted to be involved in animals. So right from being 13, I worked for the RSPCA as a dog cleaner, and basically feeding and cleaning animals anywhere I could. But when we got to the late 80s, early 90s, my passion for animals was still there, but I was going more onto the parrot side of things. I found them fascinating, and I started off with one parrot. Unfortunately, that was the nearest thing to drugs that I could get to, because from there, I became totally addicted to parrots. So we've got 50 acres now, and the genuine plan was to have about an acre of land and put a few avies up there, look after a few parrots. But people started turning up on my back garden to see me working with the parrots. I said, well, let's just have a look at opening and let people come. And it then rollerballed. I got asked by the council if I would help them with some meerkats that was on someone's back garden. And I realised that people like meerkats better than parrots. So we started getting customers. So then I started looking at other things, and our council was just one of those unusual councils that in Lincolnshire, we had quite a lot of tigers in people's back gardens. I honestly had no idea. I lived 5 miles away from someone who had 5 tigers in his back garden. They all lived in the back of a wagon. And so we took those on, and then we started getting phone calls out of the blue, and ended up with, well, a array of all sorts, from tigers to lions but they've all come from the general public. And then from there, it's just literally, it's a passion that's gone daft.
I've always gravitated towards the larger animals. That I think because of that first experience with the rhino, those are the animals that I get closest to in terms of connection. But if I had to pick an individual, it would be an elephant called Five. I looked after her for 13 years, and it's the intelligence really of that species. I mean, elephants are just absolutely amazing. You come in the morning and go down to their sleeping quarters and be, morning 5, and she'd trumpet back and rumble.
Yeah.
And, she'd come up and flap her ears and put her head down, so you can feel the infrasound going through your body.
Yes.
It's really moving, and they know you, and it's sometimes it sounds really daft, but you feel like they get your mood as well. So if you're feeling a bit down,
100%.
sometimes I'd get the impression she'd come over and almost be a comfort for you, if you like.
Yes.
And it's really odd. It's kind of like, it's like the other woman, isn't it? My house would be emblazoned with her pictures. And, you think maybe this has gone a bit too far.
Yeah.
And I just think, everything you do then is steered towards that animal. I've got to provide everything for her. I've got to provide her mental stimulation. I've got to provide her food, her care.
Yes.
Because otherwise I'm not doing my job. I couldn't stand here and justify to public who are a bit, we're not sure about animals in captivity, and say they're looked after absolutely fine. And so that's what drove me on, really. I would always give 110%.
A number of years ago, I got a call about a pair of mandrill monkeys, which, as you'll know, are quite big on the monkey world. They're probably the biggest monkey that there is. And they were a big muscly one called Jackson. And although we got the primate keepers, I secretly did spend a lot of time there, and I did go and sit watching him and making sure he'd got everything he needed. And his missus took ill as she passed away. Poor old Jackson went into instant depression. He wouldn't eat, and he was slowly going down the hill, and the vet was here every day. So I got in touch with his old owner and said, is there anything that you can actually do? And he said, well, if ever he felt down, we used to give him a donut. And I put my hand in my pocket and I'd got donuts. So I passed it to him and he walloped it down. And for about a month, we became unbelievable mates, to the point where I wasn't bothered about the family, the parrots, anything. All I needed to do was get up, make sure Jackson was all right. And then one day I looked and realised he'd got massive muscles again. So from that day, I said, right, I'm going to have to wean myself off him now. That went on for about 5 or 6 months. And then sadly, he had a stroke. And it was then I realised what the emotional tie was. What job we do is by far the right job to look after these animals. I don't have any problems about animals in captivity because I think we play a really important role for them. Everything after that is a massive bonus. If I can get one kid to come here and look and say, wow, I didn't realise that's what a tiger looked like, I now want to look into tigers, then my job's done.
Jane Wilkinson recorded Steve and Lawrence. Come and listen to us again next week if you can. Tiny snapshots of other people's lives. And if one thing doesn't tickle your fancy, something else will. From all of us on the team, happy listening and goodbye.